This is Optimal Living Daily, episode 2600, The Most Important Skill to Master, Part 1 by Leo Babauta of ZenHabits.net. And I'm your narrator, Justin Malik, reading you blogs every single day of the year for 2600 episodes. Now, today's article is a little longer than normal. I'll read the first half and then finish the rest tomorrow. So with that, let's get right to part 1 as we optimize your life. The Most Important Skill to Master, Part 1 by Leo Babauta of ZenHabits.net. If you're like me, you are constantly learning new skills: gardening, carpentry, pizza making, languages, sports, and so on. I think this is a fun and wonderful thing to do. But what's the most important skill? That's debatable. I think compassion is a huge one, as is mindfulness. I'd go with those two any day of the week. But if I had to pick just one, it would be this: learning to be happy with yourself. That seems too simple, too trite, too mushy and new agey, and I'll grant all of that, but I stand firmly by my pick. Why? The answer has to do with how this one thing can affect everything else in your life. If you're not happy with yourself or your body, you become insecure, you think you're not good enough, you fear being abandoned and alone. You do lots of other things to compensate, and these lead to problems. So many of the problems people have stem from this one thing: being unhappy with themselves, often in the form of being unhappy with their bodies. Let's take a look at why, and then look at some ideas of how to master the skill. Why it affects everything. Let's say you're unhappy with your body. You think you are too fat or too skinny, or your butt is too small or too big, or your boobs are too small, or your pecs aren't big enough. Your stomach is flabby or loose or covered in stretch marks. Your thighs are too thick. Your hips are too wide or too narrow. The list goes on and on. We'll get into why we're unhappy in a minute, but for now, just imagine the unlikely scenario that you're unhappy with your body. What does that do to you? Well, you might be envious of other people who you know are also unhappy with their bodies. You might be worried that you're not attractive enough to meet someone and therefore sabotage your chances for a relationship. If you're in a relationship, you might think your boyfriend or girlfriend will leave you for someone more attractive. You might then act jealously and do things out of this jealousy that actually leads to your partner being unhappy and possibly eventually leaving you. If you're unhappy with your body, you might not want to look at it. You might obsessively undereat and then binge eat and then feel worse about yourself. You might avoid exercise because you don't want to even think about the problem. You might eat junk food to comfort your bad feelings and then make the health problems worse. You might have anxiety about all of this, about your body, your health, your girlfriend leaving you. Then you eat more to assuage the anxiety and it gets worse. Or you shop to make yourself feel better and you get deeply in debt and your life fills with clutter. Or you drink alcohol or numb yourself with drugs or television so you don't have to think about all this. At work, you're unhappy because you aren't confident about yourself or your body, so you don't do the things that require confidence and that would further your career. You might not leave your work to find work you're more passionate about because you don't think you're good enough. Even at the work you're in, you do what you can to not think about the unhappiness you have, so you procrastinate with social networks, games, and other diversions. There's much more that's possible, but you get the idea. Not everyone has all of these symptoms, but they're possible for anyone. Many of our problems stem from this one problem, and fixing it can change everything. That's why if you have a finite amount of time to learn, and we all do, investing that time into learning this one skill can pay off in innumerable ways. It's the most important skill you can master. Why we're like this? If this is so bad, why are we like this? How did it get this way? Well, there's no one answer. It's a building up of lots of reasons, including, number one, mass media. We see beautiful celebrities with perfect faces, stomachs, thighs, abs, chests, and asses all over the place, on the internet, on TV and movies, in magazines, everywhere. They're celebrated as the pinnacle of our society, and we all want to be them in some way. They're not real, of course. They're photoshopped, make-upped, did-upped in so many ways that what we see is an illusion. We're comparing ourselves to an illusion. But even if they were, why would we need to be like them? Why can't we be like ourselves and let that be the ideal? Number two, comments from others. Friends, family members, coworkers, even spouses might make a seemingly innocent comment about our butt or boobs that make us feel bad about ourselves. These comments are small, but hit our self-esteem very hard. They're not really about us though, even if we almost always take them to heart. They're about the other person who is having a bad day or jealous of you or projecting their own insecurities on you or comparing you to the mass media celebrities they idolize for no good reason. See these comments for what they are and don't take them to heart. Number 3, childhood incidents. In childhood, perhaps our parents made some comments about us that made us feel bad. Perhaps our parents got a divorce or our dad was never around. If dad left mom, maybe that meant she wasn't good enough for him. And by extension, maybe I'm not good enough for someone else. If dad left, maybe it's because I wasn't good enough for him. This might sound like psychological mumbo jumbo, but it's real. I've experienced it, and so have countless others. It doesn't mean we have to let it rule our lives, but we should be aware that it's there and learn to deal with it. To be continued. You just listened to part 1 of the post titled The Most Important Skill to Master by Leo Babauta of ZenHabits.net. Thank you to Leo. Coincidentally, I feel like this sort of continued the idea we were talking about yesterday, how we have so many different choices and possibilities in life that we might end up feeling paralyzed because we're afraid we're wasting our time if we make the wrong choice. And this applies to the skills we choose to learn as well. And here's Leo with helping us choose one particular skill that we definitely should master, which also happens to relate to yesterday's article too, and that's being happy with ourselves. We can be unhappy with ourselves for maybe going a direction that in retrospect didn't lead where we thought it would be. And the article yesterday was talking about how we shouldn't feel that way. And if we could master this skill of being happy with ourselves, then problem solved, I guess. It is interesting how many different issues and problems can arise by us not being happy with ourselves. So I think it's a good one to think about. But we're going to continue this post and hear more about why we're like this and how to actually master the skill. So I'll leave it there for today. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you tomorrow where we'll finish up this post and where your optimal life awaits.